Okay, everyone. So for this episode, we're talking about Rule 106, which is the rule of completeness. We'll talk about generally what it applies to, and then specifically what the content of the rule says. I will pull up the rule here on screen share, though. Okay, so the rule states remainder of or related writings or recorded statements. If a party introduces all or part of a writing or recorded statement, an adverse party may require the introduction at that time of any other part or any other writing or recorded statement that in fairness ought to be considered at the same time. What this means is that if you enter a set of text messages or an expert report, a journal, but you only enter in specific portions of that document, the other party, per the rule of completeness, Rule 106, can ask that the rest of the related writings and recordings associated with that document be added in at that time. Namely, this would come up when you're trying to take a quote out of context. You can ask that all of the related writings and recordings along that quote from an article or something, that the context be added in as well. That's the purpose of 106 as it's written. It's pretty straightforward. It allows you to get in favorable information when they're trying to cherry pick unfavorable information out of a specific document. I can imagine in this case it would happen with text messages or something to that effect. But the rule of completeness underlies a key tenet of the rules of evidence that goes beyond just writings and recordings. And that's the idea of opening the door, or just generally of fairness. So regardless of whether it's a related writing to a document, because that's what 106 addresses. 106 merely addresses physical documents, newspaper articles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the spirit of fairness that it encapsulates goes to almost any kind of evidence. Let's say you have auditory hearsay statements. You have a part of a conversation that you let in. The rule of completeness, or as it's colloquially known, opening the door, is a theory that because one side talked about portions of that conversation, in due fairness, the other side can talk about the other half as well. Let's say you have a conversation back and forth, but you have a hearsay exception for one member's statements and you don't for the other. You can enter in, obviously, the statement that's admissible, but many judges, not all, will say that the other team, the defense in this case, can elicit the other half of those conversations, even if there's no relevant exception, because half of the conversation was. And that's called opening the door. A lot of different people have a lot of different opinions as to how far this should be taken. 106 is very explicit that it only deals with physical writings or recorded statements, but a lot of people extrapolate it out to all far-flung areas of the rules of evidence. So if you're someone who wants certain statements in, and they, as the other team, have entered in statements from that same document, but haven't given the full context, then you can use and do cite Rule 106, the rule of completeness, to complete the record when it comes to that specific piece of evidence. It's very strong when you can use it. I would highly recommend it, and it's a key tenet that underlies the rules of evidence. Okay, hopefully that made sense, and thanks.